glad to be here tonight to bring you just some tips and resources to kind of enhance the toolbox that you already have as parents and some staff possibly in working with kids, even pre-K all the way up through 12th grade. So we've got lots of resources tonight. If you are joining us in person or online, we will have some avenues for which you can still participate and share some comments, some questions, but you will also be getting access to this entire PowerPoint that has additional links for you to access at your leisure. So the title tonight is Pandemic, Mental Health, Bullying, Oh My. And we know over the course of several months, we've all maybe probably even felt and noticed changes in ourselves and our students. So tonight we're just going to talk about several things that you can say or do that can help you support them and also support yourself as you're helping your kids. So when we think about home, most of us often think about just our physical structure, the structure of our home. Some of us think about family meals or the people that live in our home, and some of us even think about all the crazy things that happen in home, right? Like the schedules and the to-do lists and all the activities and the chores and all the busy things that keep us going. Well, when we think about school, we also often think about the physical building. This is we're just going to school, that's where we learn. We kind of have some general associations about school. We also think that that's where we go to learn, where we go to grow, to have friends, to have fun, and really we spend a lot of time there. We also think about all of the different things we have to manage and balance when we're at school. So I know as a parent of 3 kiddos myself, I think about, oh my goodness, how are they managing to keep up their schedule and to keep on top of all of the things that are going on. But really we learned that throughout the process that that's what happens at school. Now the next one, I really just even had a hard time coming up with a word to help kind of describe the feelings. So I'll just show you some of those pictures. And is it true to say that when we look at pictures like this or when we see pictures of students or even our own students, is it fair to say that some of these things could be happening at home and at school? And we're not really sure because sometimes when the kids are going through lots of different things, maybe there are things happening at home that impact them at school, and maybe there are things at school happening that impact them at home. So sometimes as parents, as caregivers, as staff, we often have a hard time trying to figure out what is exactly going on with our kids. So tonight we'll cover some generic things but with lots of specific resources and skills and strategies to help you kind of support them no matter what is going on. So a little bit about me. I'm honored to be here today, either in person or online or recorded if you're joining us later. A little bit about me, that I have 3 kids, all in high school. I also am the proud mom of 2 black labs who almost take up a lot more of my behavior training skills than the kids do sometimes. But I have been doing this kind of work and supporting parents and teachers both privately and publicly for the better part of 20 years. One of my passions is to certainly provide you, my audience, with the most effective tools that I've learned in those 20 years. Both learning on my own, but also learning from parents and teachers like you. So you can use them to build on the values and the tools and skills that you already have in raising those happy and healthy kids. I've never met a parent who has woken up and said, oh, I hope I ruined my kid today. We know that parents are always trying to do their best with the skills that they have, and that every parent has the best intentions to raise their child to be happy and healthy and productive in the community and to just really do their best and be successful. So that's what I hope for you tonight, is that you'll find something in all of the resources I share, not to overwhelm you, but also just to find something that fits for you and your values and your family, also for whatever age range of child that you might be tuning in for tonight. So when we think about that, first of all, thank you for attending tonight, whether you are here or logging on. we really want to make sure that you recognize that you are not alone in looking for and wanting more help in parenting and supporting your child. Kids are going through lots of stuff right now. As adults, we're going through some stuff too, whether it's a one-time thing or something that we've been trying to cope with for a long time. So when you think about asking for help and you think about reaching out, please continue to use the supports and the resources and the professionals that you have access to. When you think about talking with some of your struggles, talk with your parenting partner or with someone that you feel is a trusted friend. Certainly rely on your instincts as parents, as staff. You have that feeling, and I want you to trust that. If something's not quite sitting right with you, explore that a little bit. Think about your family values. How are these things important to me and to my family, and what do I want my kids to learn and take away with as they continue to grow and leave the home? But also then seek out feedback. Who else is in your circle? Who else is connected to your community or to your family that might also be able to offer you some support and some guidance? Lots of the school professionals, community professionals, there are lots of other people out there that can offer you support and information. So you can get all of the information that will help you make the best decisions for raising your child. So there's lots of different resources out there, but I also want to caution you as you start digging into things and you start Googling all of the different things that could be helpful for you, certainly try not to overwhelm yourself. So just like tonight, as we go through some of these resources, I'm going to be sharing a lot, but it's not meant to overwhelm you. Only take on as much as you feel you can handle, but you do have access to these resources so you can easily come back and you can look at something again, or you can just kind of take your time going through them. Or maybe there's a situation that comes up and you're like, oh, didn't I hear something about that? I'm going to go back to that PowerPoint or go back to that video and see if I can find out what that tool or that strategy was to help me. So definitely consider your options as you move forward in supporting your child. And then remember and give yourself credit for always just trying to do your best and not have regrets. You can't look back 3, 4, 5 years ago and say, oh, I wish I would have, or I could have, I should have, because you didn't know that then. And right now in this moment, you're looking for ways to continue to do your best. So thank you again for being here. All right, so I mentioned in the intro that you have an opportunity to share interactively, to participate both online or here in person. So if you wouldn't mind, or you can shout out verbally too, but if you'd like to, go ahead and grab a phone or a device, and all I'm going to ask you to do is to go to this website, menti.com. That's MENTI.com. Usually in class they tell you not to use your phone, but today you get to use your phone. So go to this menti.com and use the code 19446325. And what that'll do is it'll allow you to confidentially participate both here on site and live online, and all of your confidential answers will be able to be shown right up on the screen. So there's no name, no account needed, nothing like that. It's super easy and super confidential. And then once you get onto that website, I will be able to show you right up here all of those live answers. So looks like we've got some people already logging in at menti.com. So what kinds of stuff are kids going through? We've got a couple answers. We've got screen fatigue, COVID, absolutely. Not only just, there's so many things about COVID, right? Maybe personal illness or family illness, or just all of the changes that COVID has brought to us. Social media addiction, busy life, mental frustration and exhaustion due to COVID, social distancing. You got it. So social media, we know, family dynamics, absolutely. So thinking about those home and school things, right? We've got some great answers up there. So feel free to continue adding some things, peer relationships, friend group dynamics, heightened anxiety, No opportunities to unwind. We go back to that schedule, right? We're just going from here to here to here to here. You got it. Managing our time. Lots of different things that kids are just kind of, they're going through. Falling behind with school because of there we go. Lack of being in school, political issues. For some of our older kids, even our younger kids who hear some of that feedback, they're reading the news, they're on social media, they hear the family's conversations at home. And personally, some learning difficulties, performance pressure. You guys, this list could go on, right? So it certainly gives us a really good insight into what kids are dealing with. Lots of different things. Now, I would guess, though, if we also took a look at this, and we looked at this from a perspective of what are adults going through. I'm going to guess that about 90% of these same exact things are some of the same exact things that us as adults are going through. So when we look at all of these resources and suggestions and things that we'll talk about tonight, certainly we're focused on helping our kids, but we're also going to use those opportunities to keep in mind of strategies for ourselves, because we've got a lot of things going on as well, in addition to helping our kids. So one of those things that we're going to talk about and try to keep both of those in mind. So go ahead and keep Menti up. We'll use this for questions and answers at the end, and then also a backup opportunity for any of you who are joining to share your email address privately, not on the screen, in the event that I would be able to contact you if you had personal questions. All right. So thank you for sharing. So tonight what we'll do is offer a few tools to help you address some of those thoughts. Some of the thoughts where when we think about the things that are happening in the world, we want to make sure that as adults we're creating a space where it's okay for kids to share their thoughts, whether or not we agree with them. And we want to make sure that that safe place does not include judging or shaming or blaming. We want kids to recognize that they can share all of their feelings, all of their thoughts in a safe place where we can help them explore what those thoughts are. Because we know that thoughts lead to feelings, and feelings are one of those things that then lead to action. So we want to make sure that when we help kids talk about their feelings, use emotional vocabulary, understand how and why they are feeling those things. Why do you think you feel that way? What does it? How do you think those feelings came about? We want to encourage them to recognize that, so then when they get to the point where we're talking about things they do and they're acting on it and they're making choices, they then feel like they are making really good choices for them, that they can feel confident about, that they feel like that make them a better person and help them be the best that they can be. So even if they don't and they end up making mistakes, we want to again go back to the beginning where we have that space where the kids can make a mistake and still then know that they have support. So they'll be thinking about things, experiencing these feelings, then acting on those feelings, and even if they make mistakes, they'll come back to a safe space where they can talk again about those thoughts and feelings. All right, we call that the cognitive behavioral triangle, and those thoughts really are important. So a lot of the strategies today are going to be talking about how we can help our kids work through those thoughts that impacts how they feel, and then ultimately impacts their choices, because really that's where we're getting at here, is that we want kids to make good choices when they're away from mom and dad, right? And we want to give them the opportunity to do that, but we also want them to know that if they happen to make a mistake, that it's a part of growing up and learning, and how can we be there to support them through that? The biggest one as parents is that you are your child's first teacher. You know that you can be models of how to use some of these strategies yourself. So the biggest one here, I'm just going to circle it and put it out there. The biggest one is to stay calm, but I also know it's the hardest sometimes, right? Because it's really easy for me to stand up here and say that, and when I work with kids and families in home or in school, I can really be calm in this situation. but it's really hard when it's your own kid and you're emotionally connected to all of the outcomes and you've got everything else going on. So staying calm and trying to model that when we talk about coping skills, it is going to be a great opportunity for you to practice some of those skills with your student, with your child, so they can see how they work. And then the second biggest one that I talk to parents about is really admitting your mistakes. And this can be hard because as the adult, we don't think that we make mistakes, and we want the kid to know that they're the one who made mistakes and we get the last word, and that's what happens. But really, as an adult, if we can admit that we made a mistake, we'll give you some examples on exactly how to say that in a way that still kind of keeps your control and your power, but also allows you to continue to build your relationship with your child. Some of the other things that we'll talk about are how to help each other, accept challenges, share how you got through a tough time. Is to really try to be more transparent and honest with your kids about some of your own struggles, certainly if they're appropriate with the developmental level of your child. But really giving examples of how you take care of yourself and how you take care of problems and how you solve those in a positive way. So here are some examples of what that might sound like. When I got frustrated at work, I just told myself, it's going to be okay. When my boss asked me to do something I didn't want to do, and hopefully you have a positive answer for this one, right? I just go ahead and I did it. And I told myself I just have to do it because it's part of my job. I use this one a lot with kids because they'll say something like, well, I don't want to do my math, or I don't want to do the dishes. And I'll say, well, when my boss asks me to do something, I have to do it, or I'm going to, get in trouble at work. What's going to happen if you don't do your chores at home or you don't do your work at school? So we're giving them examples of how, as adults, we have the same thoughts and feelings that they do. They don't like to do things, they don't want to do things, but how am I modeling my example even as an adult? And then I might say something like, oh, today was not my best day at work, but I know tomorrow's going to be better. And then here's where we get into that apology. I'm sorry I yelled at you. I didn't want this to be an argument. Can we just start over? And that takes a lot of courage from a parent to apologize, especially if you have an argumentative teen, right? Because then they might just come back at you and say, see, you're just arguing with me anyway. But I don't mean for that. I don't want this to end in an argument. I'm sorry I raised my voice. Can we continue to talk about it calmly? When we do that, we are trying to preserve the relationship that we have with our child. It's more important to focus on the problem than it is to focus on the arguing and the anger. So that's why we want to think about, even sometimes I have to say, you know what, sometimes you just have to eat crow. If it's not your fault and it's not your problem, but you still have to be the bigger person and you still have to say, you know what, I'm sorry. And maybe your child will apologize, maybe not, but you are modeling how this works. And eventually, most times they will come around and apologize also, and then start over. Sometimes in some families, if the conflict is high and lots of people are involved, you might say something like, it sounds like we're just all too upset right now to talk about this. Let's take a break and come back in a few minutes. And as an adult, as I model that to my family, I'm modeling self-care, but I'm also modeling boundaries for respectful communication. All right. Sometimes we talk about self-care, and this is just a really quick reminder, especially for us adults, because sometimes we think self-care is like going for a walk or taking a break or taking a bath. But really, self-care as adults is even bigger. When we ask for help, we are using that as an opportunity to take care of ourselves. When we forgive ourselves, which is when we say that we apologize to our child, and we also then offer ourselves and say, you know what, that was not my best day parenting, but I can forgive myself and I can let that go. Sometimes setting boundaries and just staying at home is self-care, because you don't have to do everything, go everywhere, be everything to everyone. You can say no, and putting yourself first sometimes and what that means. All right, so just a visual that as adults, as we continue to teach our kids some of these strategies, that we also are taking care of ourselves as we go. Now, when we talk about those thoughts and those feelings and those behaviors, one of the biggest things that we can do to support our kids is to help them develop an emotional vocabulary, okay? So even from the youngest little kids, we can start helping them figure out that certain feelings relate to certain colors. And this tool, this what I call my favorite zones visual, is taken from a curriculum called Zones of Regulation, which is a research-based emotional regulation curriculum. And what it helps us do is it helps us identify that feelings have colors. And when we are certainly in a different zone of color other than green, we have tools and strategies we can use to get back into the green zone. And as adults, helping even the youngest children recognize that they have more feelings than sad and mad, right? Because that's oftentimes what we hear. I'm sad, I'm mad. Or happy, they know that one too. But really helping to build that emotional vocabulary. So I've included in the slides that you will have access to is not only a link to this visual to be able to use with your child, but also some other things, an additional list of coping tools for older middle school to high school kids. And then for adults, I'll go to the next screen here. I've included this 21 ways to include relaxation in your workday. And some of these are pretty easy. Like, I really thought, I'm like, oh yeah, right. Like, when do I have time to add relaxation into my workday? But really, there's one on here that's kind of hidden, but it says, when your car is warming up, to just sit there and take some deep breaths. And I thought, oh my gosh, well that's brilliant, because everybody needs their car to warm up in the winter, right? So that can just be an opportunity for me to add relaxation into something I'm already doing. Or maybe when I'm driving to work, maybe I don't even have the music on and I just focus on some of the sensations in my body. Maybe it's the cold steering wheel, maybe it's the weight of my coat, maybe whatever that might be, but all of those things. That is one of my favorite handouts there for ways to increase relaxation throughout your day. The other one that I've linked to is 50 ways to take a break. It's a fun little just visual poster. Some families I've worked with have just cut the little circles out of all of the different ways to take a break, and they put it in a bowl at home, and every night they just pull one out, somebody pulls one out, and they do that activity as a family. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 15, but it's one way to kind of make finding a break and taking a relaxation time together kind of gamey and kind of fun. So you'll have links to those resources as well. So now we're getting into some of the big stuff, right? Now we know that we can help teach our kids about their feelings, help them recognize some tools and some strategies on how to cope with some of the stressors that they're dealing with. But now as we talk about as adults, what are some strategies that we can actually say to our kids when things get heated, right? That we're still trying to create that space for conversation, we're still trying to maintain our relationships. One of the mindsets as adults that sometimes we have to switch to and remember is that we are going to really focus on accepting, not necessarily approving, okay? So we always want to focus on accepting our child, accepting them for who they are. They are our child and they are born good, and sometimes they make bad choices. Oftentimes I hear kids say, I'm just a bad kid. I'm just a bad kid. No, you're not. You're a great kid. You just made a bad choice. So we're going to focus on accepting our child no matter what, but not necessarily approving of all their behavior all the time. And how we can do that is by really making sure that we're trying to be patient and get as much information from the child at the time that we can. Now I know sometimes they come to you and you don't have time. It's time for dinner, it's time to get out of the house, I've got 3 other kids, I've got this going on. So something you can say to your child is, this sounds really important to you. Can mom come back to you later when you have my full attention? Because if you can't listen with 100% of your attention at that moment, let them know it's important. It's important that I listen to you that I hear exactly what you're saying. But right now I'm in the middle, the stove's on, and I've got, the diaper to change, and I've got...
Good evening, and thanks to all the parents that are attending parent-teacher conferences. Just a reminder that teachers will need to wrap up in just a few minutes here, as conferences are coming to an end at 6:30. Thanks for coming again. Have a nice evening.
So I want my child to know that what they're saying is really important to me. And I want to have the patience and the time to be able to listen 100%. It might sound something like this when I have the time to actually do that. When I want to find out more, I don't approve of their behavior, the kids are fighting, maybe something is happening, maybe I got a call from school, something happened and there's a problem. Instead of really going after my child and saying, what was going on? What did you do? What the heck was the problem? Oh my gosh, you're in trouble again. What I might want to ask instead was, tell me more. What's your side of the story? Tell me how that happened. I could also say, like if a child comes to me and says something like, I'm feeling really stressed. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. I'm feeling really, I'm just tired. What else feels overwhelming to you? I know sometimes when kids come to me at school and they're like, well, I'm just so tired. I have too much on my plate. I don't want to do this. And I'm like, oh, come on. You know, like we kind of as adults, we naturally just blow it off. Like, oh, you can do this, or we try to fix it right away. Okay, well, let's get it organized. Let's get this. I'll call this teacher. We'll get this homework done. We've got it, no problem. But really, what are we digging into? Where are these feelings coming from this student? We can also just ask, what do you need from me right now? If you're feeling overwhelmed, you're feeling stressed, you're having friendship troubles, what do you need from me right now? They might say they don't know, so then just being there is good right then, just being there. If you offer them some help and they decide that they don't need it, or no, I don't need you to talk, I don't need to talk to anybody, I don't want to hear anything, I don't need any help. Stay patient, stay calm, and you can respond. Let me know if you change your mind. Again, remember we're creating that environment where the kids know that they can always come to you, and they know that they won't be shamed or blamed or judged until there's more information, until there's a conversation. Okay? And no, I probably wouldn't approve of some of the things that my kids might do or the choices they make, but I want to learn more. I want to go from a mindset of curiosity, like what were you really thinking when you did that? And I can say it that way, or I can say it as, well, what were you thinking? And it makes a difference on how my child will respond. One of the things I hear the most from parents is about motivating kids and thinking about ways to motivate them and doing lots of different, it's been really hard over the past few months to motivate kids to do pretty much changing some of the things that they've gotten accustomed to doing. One of the biggest things I can tell you is, if you haven't heard of a growth mindset, is to start exploring that with your student. Talking the language of growth mindset means that anybody, anywhere can get smarter, stronger, and better by taking on challenges and learning from their mistakes. And that's really something that kids, I have learned as little as 1st and 2nd grade, when they start learning about their brain and how their brain can really grow, and it's like a muscle if they keep training it and getting stronger and stronger and taking on challenges. Kids are amazed by that, and it motivates them to keep trying. So I've linked some things on here. Some of my favorite resources that I'm happy to share if they help you develop some of that language about a growth mindset with children. Instead of, and then there's some other things, instead of saying you're so smart, think about things that really can help develop their work ethic. So maybe something like, you've worked really hard on that, or you didn't give up, or wow, I noticed how you worked so cooperatively with a friend, or how you worked together and you guys worked together to share ideas and you kept trying. Those are a lot of really ways to build up that idea of, you don't have to be smart. You can get smart by continuing to work hard. So for pre-K through 5, Class Dojo links are some really great quick video lessons that are really kind of cartoony and fun. And then there's also a list for middle schoolers, and then for high school parents, for high schoolers and parents to continue to learn a little bit more. Just some videos, really quick, kind of click on and learn a few things, as well as some research about growth mindset here if you are interested. The idea about growth mindset is we are constantly thinking about every opportunity we have as an opportunity to grow. I love this visual because it helps me teach kids about how we have there's different steps of progress. And so no matter how big or how small the steps are that we make, that we're always learning. So I keep a copy of this in my office because I want kids to realize that when they come in with a problem, we think about, oh, well, have I solved this problem before? What did I learn from that? And then we keep going back on, oh, well, how I want to solve it, but I don't know how. Well, what can we do? And this really is a great guide to help kids think about how much progress they've made in achieving a task. So we think about, a lot of times when we think about kids and motivation and holding them accountable, we think about consequences. And a lot of times this is one of the biggest questions I get. Like, what do we do for choices? When we give our kids consequences, what do we do? What do we do? Well, one of the biggest things for younger kids is to think about natural consequences, right? So when our child makes a mistake or is going to have a consequence, we definitely want to give them some empathy. Again, creating that environment where we show our kids that we care more about them right now than about the choice they make. How sad, honey? Are you okay? That's a bummer. You made a bad choice. What can we do to make it better? And we talk about then, how do we try to fix it? We make it better with maybe apology notes, or maybe piggy bank money if we broke something, or we do chores to pay it off. We start teaching kids that sometimes our choices are going to cost us something. They're going to cost us time, or you lose a toy, you lose a stuffed animal. It's going to cost you. A bad choice has a bad consequence. Good choices have good consequences. And we start talking about that language and using that vocabulary with kids. So by the time they get older, they recognize that there are definitely some choices and some power they have in in deciding what kind of consequences they want. So natural consequences work really well for younger kids. For some older kids, this is another strategy that works pretty well, is delaying consequences. So to stay out of an argument or a power struggle, we might say to a kid, oh, you know what, that's a bummer. Think about what you can do to make it better, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. Chances are, if a kid has made a really pretty big mistake or made a pretty bad choice and you're hot about it as a parent, talking about it in the moment is really not going to help anybody. And you really want to give the child a time to think about, well, what did I do and why did I do it? And then when you're both calm, coming back and talking about it. Now, sometimes when I use this strategy in school, the kids think, oh, she's going to forget about it. She's not going to come back tomorrow, right? You probably know that because you've got so many other things going on. But then the next day when I walk into the classroom and I knock on the door and I look at the student, and then their eyes get really big, like, oh, she remembered. But you also can give them that opportunity to think, and now they're calm and you're calm, and you can process through better solutions for next time. As a parent, though, you can also say, hey, you know what? Remember last week when you were really sassy? Or remember last week when you didn't do your chores and I had to do them? Or remember last time when you were fighting with your sister? Well, tonight, I'm sorry, I'm not going to take you to the store. Or I'm sorry, you can't go out with your friend tonight because last week you didn't do your chores, and remember I had to do them for you. And so tonight's your consequence. That's the idea behind delayed consequence, especially for older kids who can remember that. Oh, you're right, I did fight with my sister last week. Oh, so now I can't go somewhere that I want to go? And that's kind of a bummer, but we don't fight with our sister like that. Whatever those values are at home, these things are really great kind of flexible consequences. So you can really say, these are the things that are important in my house. These are the things that are non-negotiable. How can I hold you accountable for following those household rules? Some other ways to think about that. So to think about consequences. Oftentimes, kids will make the right choice if they know what the outcome will be, right? So if they know that there are certain rules or certain expectations that you have at home, and they know that they can meet them, and they know that if they don't, there's consequences, they will be able to meet the consequences. Because most kids that I've worked with don't purposely choose bad choices to get in trouble. okay? They usually choose them because they're impulsive or because they're in the heat of the moment or they're just being kids, right? But if they know better, they tend to do better. So it's a couple strategies that I'm going to share with you, a couple tools. Follow these guidelines. So think about giving your kids choices, both with high expectations and that they know what is going to be accountable. So ask them about their goals. I've had this conversation with probably about second graders. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? What do you want? What are some things you want to achieve? And they can come up with some pretty good things. So short or long-term goals. And then think about what rules or boundaries look like in your family. And set them up clearly with your kids. What are some of the non-negotiables? These are absolutely forbidden in my house. Okay? Certainly for teenagers, that's going to look different, right? And then you sit down and you talk about those with the kids. And then you make the consequences clear. If you do this, then this is going to happen. So, especially for older kids, if you break this rule or you don't meet this expectation, then you already know the consequence. So guess what? There's no debating. I already know that if I do this, Mom and Dad are going to give me this for a consequence. What's the risk? Is it worth it for me? It depends. That's the choice your child would make. And then when those mistakes are made, check yourself. How are you going to respond? We hope that you're not going to respond with anger or blame because your child is really already making this. If you have these things already set up, your child is already making this choice full well knowing that there's going to be a consequence. So you don't have to be mad at them for it, but you want to talk through them about why they chose that. So I'll give you an example of what I share with some families that I work with about that expectation sheet. I've also linked here, when the kids do make good choices, certainly praise them with some of those words that will plant the seed and continue to build their character, right? So instead of just saying, oh, hey, good job. Oh, hey, way to go. You might want to consider using some words like, wow, you were really patient. Oh my gosh, you're super hard worker. Or you were so kind to your friend. I noticed how you didn't give up. You're so dedicated. You're so determined. You're so committed. And what that does is it helps plant the seed so the next time you have your child is struggling through something, you can say, hey, remember last time when you didn't give up? I wonder if you can find that same thing right now. If you can attack this problem the same way you did last time. And you start to develop that intrinsically for your child. So some resources I'm going to show you real quick to help with this, about choices, about learning about consequences. One that I use for pre-K through 5 is called a choice box. And then a family expectations chart for middle school and high school. And here's what they look like. The choice box is really just a tool to help you kind of start having the conversation with your younger children that they always have choices. I tend to use 3 choices. I tend to use 3 choices, and the directions are right here on the bottom. And you're sitting there with your child trying to think about, you know what, we have a problem. What are some choices? Oftentimes I use this in schools when kids come in off the playground and there's been some kind of a fight, and one of the students is still kind of hot, and I'll say, okay, well, you have choices. What are you going to do about this? And the first answer is always, I'm going to go back and just punch them. And I say, yes, that's a choice. And they kind of look at me like, what? Well, it is, isn't it? It's a choice. And as adults, we want our kids to recognize that even a bad choice is a choice. So then we brainstorm, are there any good consequences that can come out of me just going back to punch him? Well, yeah, I'm going to feel better is the result. The answer I get 99% of the time, I'll feel better. Okay, then put that down. Anything else good going to come out of you going back and punching him? No. Okay. Then we talk about what are the bad consequences. Well, I'm going to get in trouble at school. I'm going to get in trouble at home. Well, he's really kind of my friend, so he probably won't be my friend anymore. Oh, so those are the bad consequences. As we go through this choice box, the kids start to recognize the one that has the most goods is probably the choice I should make. Now, as adults, we think about that and we think about problem solving like that naturally, but kids need to learn this process. They need to learn that good choices and bad choices are both options. All right, and then for our older kids, we might do something like this, what's called, I just call it the family expectation chart. If we want to sit down with our kids, we might sit here and list some of the goals. What are some goals you want to accomplish? And how are you going to meet those? You know, let's go through that. And then some of those expectations that can help us meet those goals. Getting to bed on time, making sure that I have my bag packed for school. What are those daily expectations and who do they apply to? If I don't do those, what are the consequences? And this is something you can certainly sit down with your child and do, and you can agree on what do you agree on. And as a parent, you negotiate and you're like, oh no, that's a bigger deal. I think we should have a bigger consequence. And then you negotiate and you find a common ground that you can all agree with. The part that I kind of pick on the most is these non-negotiables. The things that are most important to your family. For older kids, it might be no smoking, no drugs. Non-negotiable, absolutely not. If that happens in my house, it applies to the teenagers, and what's the consequence? Whatever that may be that fits for your family values and for your style of parenting, okay? The reason why we do this though is so we can be transparent, so our kids know you have choices. If you want to meet your goals, these are some expectations that can help you. If you don't meet those expectations, then these are the consequences in our house. With the understanding that this can be flexible and fluid, because you might need to change some of those expectations and you might need to change some of those consequences as you go. Okay, so you have access to those resources too. Now, if you're thinking about all of these things, and you're thinking about, well, I can't even sit down and have a conversation without my kid yelling at me or my kid getting mad and storming off, then we just want to back up the train a little bit, okay? Because when we think about the relationship that we have with our child, we do want to make sure that we come from a place of trust and love and compassion first. And if they don't feel it, no matter how much we try to give it, then we've got to go back and start from there, okay? How can we do some of those things? Number one, quality time. I know this is an old cliche, quality time is better than quantity time, but I tell you what, I love to tell this story about a parent who said, you know what, Angie, I came to one of your classes and you said quality time, and I thought, well, my kid doesn't even want me in the same room with him. And he said, so we talked about it a little bit, and so here's what the plan was with the dad and the son. The dad tried to go into the kid's room. The kid kind of shooed him out and said, get out of here, I don't want to talk to you, Okay, so the dad just took his phone, took his laptop, a couple nights a week, and just sat outside the kid's door. Just sat there, half an hour, didn't say anything, just sat there. A couple days later, the kid was kind of like, the dad would say, you know, the son would say, why are you sitting outside my door? Oh, I just want to be close to you. I just want to be close to you. And after a few days, the kid said, well, you know, you could come in the room. So we very, very incrementally increased the amount of time and connection that the dad had with his son. And then as soon as the dad got in the room a couple days later, he's just still on his phone or on his laptop or reading a book or doing whatever. Pretty soon, the son started talking. Oh, hey, oh my gosh, I just saw this, made a comment, and the dad said, oh, what was that? And the kid's like, never mind. But a few days later, still, guess what happened? The child and the dad started having conversations about just what they were doing on their phones. Oh my gosh, did you see that the Bulls won last night? Did you see the score of this game? Or Tom Brady, blah, blah, blah. And eventually, they started connecting. It was slow, but the dad was willing to be patient and willing to read the son's terms. So the dad had to make that effort. And even though it didn't work all the time, every night, as often as the dad could, he just tried to be present with the son. Okay? So, Quality. They didn't really do anything, but he was spending quality time together. The other tip is to fully listen to your child with your whole body. This is so hard, especially now. But put your phone down. I have to tell myself that too. Even close my computer lid so I'm not distracted by my computer when the kids come home from school, because I work from home part-time, so I'm just like, no, I have to close my computer so I can give my child eye contact. Listen with my whole body. Making sure that I am totally in tune. This goes back to when they need us 100% and we're not there, or we got 5 other things going on. We cannot listen with our whole body. So one of the things that I like to think about too is sometimes we hear our kids, but we don't really listen to our kids. So read between the lines. If they say something like, oh, there's a lot of swearing at middle school. What does that mean? What is your child telling you? Does that bother them? Does that make them uncomfortable? Are they getting teased? Are they getting sworn at? But if they make a comment and you just kind of blow it off and say, oh yeah, well, you know, kids swear, just don't you say it. Is that really addressing the situation? Try to read between the lines. What is my kid really telling me when they make those comments? Or ask a few of those questions. And if you really have that quality time with them and you're giving them your full attention, you might be able to do that. So you could ask them if they say something, oh, well, how does that make you feel? They see a fight at school. They see a friend being bullied. Somebody else is posting on social media that they're not really sure about. You know, they're making some questionable posts. Oh, how does that make you feel? Or what do you think about that? And then for some kids, you can say, you know what, tell me I'm way off. I mean, maybe I don't really know what you're saying. Or maybe I'm not really hearing you, but here's what I think. And you give permission for your child to disagree with you. Because then it's not a conflict. I'm kind of hearing you say this. Am I right or am I way off? And it allows your child to say, no, you're way off. That doesn't, Mom, that makes no sense. And then you continue the conversation. There will be times when you can recognize when you should step in. When should I step in as a parent, or when should I just let my child handle it? And this is again where you rely back on your family values. What have you been teaching your child this whole time? Are there things that are non-negotiable that you're like, no, I need to step in as a parent and help? Or are there things where you can be like, all right, well, you have some ideas on what you're going to do, on how you're going to handle that? Do you feel okay with that? And you allow them to solve it on their own. So that's really a personal preference based on the relationship and the values that you have with your child. You can always, 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 though, leave the door open. I'm here if you want ideas on what to do. Or if they say, no, I don't want any help, I don't need anything, you can say, let me know when you change your mind. But if you are really concerned and you've been working with your child on some things, I have always liked to coach parents in this one, to say, I am worried about you and not sure what to do next, but I know who to call. And again, as a team, you're moving forward together. So your child does not feel like they've done anything wrong. But as a parent, we admit that, you know what, I don't know what to do. But I know there are people who can help us. And that's where we reach out for those connections. We reach out for those professionals and we try to say, okay, let's get some more information. Let's figure out what more we can do. All right. Whew. So, as I said in the beginning, I give you lots of resources, lots of links, lots of things, okay? We talked about the thoughts that people have. We talked about building some of their feelings vocabulary, and then what we can say or do to help kids feel like they have some ownership of their choices and their actions. We talked about a lot of strategies, but again, not to overwhelm you. You will be able to have this PowerPoint and to have all the links to the resources that we talked about. Lots of strategies to put in your back pocket. And the ways that you implement them certainly can enhance some of the good things that you're already doing. So maybe it's just a tweak of the words here and there. Maybe it's just changing the way that you pay attention or communicate with your child. Maybe it's just taking care of yourself and being patient and trying to be a little more patient or more calm with your child when there's a problem. So lots of strategies. But you made it, and now we're gonna just open it up for questions, making sure you can definitely use Menti, which goes back to the slide that we used before. And what I'll do is I will just leave that back up there. So if you want to go back to menti.com, same code. You should be able to advance the screen if you have that up there. You can certainly pose questions here. If you're online watching live and you are connected to Menti, it's at menti.com, and use the code 6325. So if you have questions or comments, you can definitely use your device, or you can certainly just ask in person as well. Always that awkward pause.
Somebody have any questions? Yeah, no.
Yes.
I kind of like the way that when you said that, I have a 15-year-old that
Okay.
she said, I get home or I go pick up her from work. I'm trying to get supper done, trying to, work on dishes and trying to do, like you said, 100 things. And she's like, comes in and she just starts yelling at me or wants something. And it's like, you know what? I said, just wait a minute. I said, wait till after supper. And she's like, oh, forget it. You don't have time. And it's like, and then she just like storms off to her room.
Yes.
And it's just like, it's like, well, you can come and help with supper and we can work on it together. But she just like,
Yeah, no. No way. Not a 15-year-old, right?
no.
So one thing that I have learned that seems to be a little bit softer than, I'm busy, wait till later. And you don't say it like that, certainly. But is to validate and say something like, I want to give you my full attention.
Okay.
I'm interested in hearing what you have to say. What you have to say is important to me. Can I come and talk to you after dinner when you have my full attention? Right? So we want, especially for teenagers, we want them to, in their world, they are their most important thing. So we have to let them know that they are also our most important thing. Every one of our children should feel that. Not an easy task, right? But to let them know that what you have to say is important to me, and I can't give you my full attention right now when I'm doing all of this, but I'm going to be free at 7:30. Can I come in your room at 7:30? And then you go in at 7:30 and you follow through. And if at 7:30 she still says never mind, what happens is you've changed what she expects from you. And so next time when this happens and you say that, she's going to be ready at 7:30. Okay? Because when we respond the same way, then they've already got their answer, right? But we want her to know, we want our child to know that what you have to say is important to me, and I want to give you my full attention. I can't do that right now, but I can do it at 7:30. Can I come back in your room at 7:30? See how that works. Sometimes these are all just experiments too, because on a different night, your daughter might be like doors open at 7:30 on a better night, and some nights it might not be. But as parents, we keep trying because we never know when it'll be the right time for them. They're unpredictable, aren't they? Thank you for the question. Okay, so when you ask your child, how was your day, and they just say fine. Oh my gosh, I hate the fine answer. So what do you do with that answer? So here's something that's really a little bit of a strategy to help a little bit, okay? I started doing this with my own daughter because everything was a fine. But here's how I asked her. I'm like, okay, on a scale of 1 to 5, how fine was it? Because then I get a little bit more. Was it like a 1 fine? Like, terrible? Or was it like 5 fine? Like, woohoo, this was a 5 fine day. Because at least then in her mind, she then can give me some idea about how fine her day was. And as a parent, I want to know. Because the range of fine is like this, right? And I at least want to know, was it a 1 day, or was it a 5 day? So I've just started having that conversation. Then as you get used to saying, oh, well, then what made it a 5? And then you can ask about that. Well, what made it a 1? Yesterday you were a 2, how to get a 1 today? And you can see if they share, and if not, then don't push it. But this idea, so you'd introduce this like, okay, on the 5, and you can just say, you just introduce it right in the moment. You could say, how was your day? And you would answer?
4.
Well, just say fine now, and then I'll introduce
fine.
kind of how to. Oh, well, guess what? On a scale of 1 to 5, on the fine scale, how fine was it?
A 4.
A 4? Oh, what made it a 4?
I was busy and got lots of stuff done.
Okay, so great. So for me, with my daughter right now, that worked out great. But now let's see who wants to be the defiant teen who doesn't want to answer. Anyone? Okay, how was your day?
Fine.
Well, on a scale of on the fine scale, 1 to 5, 5's the best. How fine was your day?
Fine.
Just fine. So I'm going to take that as a 3.
Just
About a
fine.
3. So 3 today.
Yeah.
Okay, tomorrow I'm going to ask you again on the fine scale. I wonder if your day is going to be worse, a 1 or a 2, or if your day is going to be better, 4 or 5. I wonder. And I leave it at that. I don't argue, but I'm teaching. Notice how I'm teaching her on the fine scale. Oh, if today is a medium, you're a 3. Now I'm going to teach her a worse day is 1 or 2, a better day is 4 or 5. And I just leave it. And tomorrow I'll ask again. And now she kind of might have an idea of, oh, well, today was better than yesterday. So now I'm hoping that she would give me a 4. Okay? So in that moment, I try to teach. All right? Questions are coming. All right. Defiance. How do you be compassionate and patient? Oh my gosh. Here's my biggest input on when kids are outright defiant. Okay? If you know as a parent what triggers you, okay? Like, in my 20 years of working in the school district, there was one student that I can remember who, when there was a behavior call for that student, I went right to the principal and I said, you've got to take that kid. Because that kid was my trigger kid. I could not work with that kid because of just personality conflict. There was lots of things that just triggered me about the kid. So I have to know my own triggers first. If there are certain behaviors that your kids are doing that you know are going to set you off, because we can tolerate quite a bit, right, parents? We can tolerate quite a bit. But if there's something your child does, and if it's defiance, then you have to, again, think about, well, how do you model patience? How do you continue to create an environment where your child can be who they are, defiant or not, and still feel like this is a safe place in your home? So my biggest thing would be to say something like, I will listen to you when you talk to me with a calm voice. I'm happy to help you when you talk to me respectfully. And I just say over and over, I'm happy to talk to you or help you when you use a calm voice. And I tell them that. I'm happy to talk to you when your voice is calm like mine. For little kids who are yelling, screaming, I would just say, match my voice. Match my voice. Match my voice. And I start to lower my voice into a whisper as they're yelling. Because then once I start to whisper, they can't hear me, and then they start to be quiet. But I would repeat, match my voice. Match my voice. I'll talk to you when your voice matches mine. Okay? If you need to walk away, just walk away. Don't get into it. If you know, walk away, save your face, save yourself. Don't get into it. They want the power struggle, they want the attention, they want the control. So walk away. Walk away. You can say, this is too much for me, I'm going to take a break, I'll talk to you tomorrow. And you walk away. Lock yourself in the bedroom if you need to, go for a drive if it's safe to leave your child at home alone. Okay, hopefully that helps. You have got to take care of yourself first. When your child is being defiant, disrespectful, downright rude and nasty, take care of yourself first. That's a parenting plus. Get out of there and tell yourself, you know what? Nothing I'm going to say to the kid right now is going to be helpful, polite, or kind. So I better get out. How often should a parent monitor their child's social media platforms? Oh, this is really a personal choice. I've worked with parents who have their kids locked down with other parent security apps. I've worked with parents who don't even have their kids' passcode on their phone, and their kid has their phone all night long. So it's really personal preference. Lost my, not sure what happened there. So I lost that. Sorry, we'll try to figure out what happened. So really personal preference, depending on the age of your child and how much access they have. One of those limits very well could be that we really try to monitor screen time and limit screen time. But again, having that conversation about the choices that the child is making, what's acceptable in your home, what are your family values, what the consequences would be, okay? That's a hard one, but there are some good apps out there that monitor that and then send parents reports of what their kids are accessing. So if you do have concerns, there are some of those resources out there. I'm guessing that your school counselors and school social workers will have a good handle on some of those resources to help with screen time, because I know that's a really big deal. Let's see. I wonder if, oh, there we go. Let's see. Oh, perfect. Thank you. Good job.
That's what I did.
All right. Let's see. My child shuts down and can't express his emotions. How do I get him to open up? Okay, this is really, this can be really sensitive for kids, especially if they have some anxiety or if they do feel like the environment at home is not supportive of their feelings, okay? So sometimes maybe kids have expressed their emotions at one point and didn't feel like they were 100% supported. So it's hard for them to express their feelings again, or maybe they just don't know how. I would steer you back to, depending on the age of the child, the resources about coping skills, recognizing that there are tools to help kids get into the green zone from that zones of regulation visual that I shared up there. And just really kind of using that emotional vocabulary. One of the things I love with, I'm going to assume that maybe this is for younger kids. If not, post another question up there. But one of the things I really love and that I found great success with is even as early as pre-K and kindergarten is to really use a lot of picture books. When you're reading stories at bedtime or when you're reading stories for school, is to really help the characters in the book and use those to help the child solve problems. So you're reading the story and you say, oh my goodness, I wonder how do you think the bunny rabbit feels? Why would the bunny rabbit feel that way? What do you think the bunny rabbit's going to do to solve those problems? And you use those characters as teaching tools to help your child understand that every story, every character is faced with choices and problems, right? Oh my goodness, what do you think Winnie the Pooh is going to do when he sees Eeyore with a sad face? Or, like all of those kinds of things. And really using children's picture books to help identify emotions and help, look at the people who are around him who helped him. They made him feel better when he talked to them and shared with his feelings, like all of those kinds of things. So you really just use that as a guide to springboard that vocabulary and to have those conversations with your child. A class on boundaries. Oh, there's lots of boundaries. Maybe share a little bit more. Are we thinking just like home rules and like boundaries, consequences, expectations, that kind of thing? My child doesn't have any friends. How do I help them connect? Okay, this is really heartbreaking for a parent, right? When your child doesn't have any friends. One of the things that I think about now, here's the thing to just think about. Is your child having friends something you want for them, or is it something they want for them? And here's why I ask, because we have some children who are quite happy just being in class, and the stimulation they get from being in class and being around their classmates is enough. They have people to sit with, they have people to kind of hang out with, but that's enough. So just think about how much is this your agenda or your child's agenda? And I only say that because I've worked with several families who force kids to interact with others, and really the children are quite happy just being by themselves because they get overstimulated and they might have some anxiety, or they might have some other identifiable things that kind of help, that kind of hurt them in relationships. So if they don't have any friends and they do want friends, I would talk with your child about just different ways that you can find things that you like to do, maybe where they connect with kids on interests or activities, maybe being a volunteer or being a helper somewhere where they can feel like they connect to people and then get to know people in relationships like that. Oftentimes there are opportunities through community ed or through other small groups at maybe a faith community or something like that, where they try to get to know people based on interests, and then they can connect through those interests and develop through hobbies or activities. Okay, that is kind of hard. If you do notice that your kid maybe has some quirky behaviors, that can be really sensitive on how to address your child with that with their peers. I would suggest using your school resources or community resources to talk with your child about some of that too, and maybe the schools can help support that goal for you and your child. And then it looks like we've got one more. My child also often gets in trouble for being competitive at school. I want him to be himself, but everything is about fair. Got it. This being competitive, right? And I think I put up there that sometimes those competitive games and competitive activities can kind of help build motivation, right? I'm motivated to win. One of the things I would talk about addressing with your child if he's super competitive, and this is a great opportunity to have conversations with kids about, we want to make sure that everybody feels included and can contribute. So maybe a suggestion for your child, if they're super competitive and probably pretty talented, maybe they can challenge themselves or set a goal to teach someone else how to be that good, right? So maybe they say something like, if somebody says, you always get the ball, you're always the quarterback, or you always get to kick first, or you're always the captain, you could encourage your child to say, well, would you like to learn how to kick better? I can teach you. I'm happy to teach you. Or you can say, well, would you like to be the captain sometime? It's okay if you want to be the captain today. And so you really try to offer your child to be, can use his or her skills and their strengths in the competitive way, but also to be a leader and to help teach someone else how to do it as well. And I don't know if that, I've seen that work and I've heard that work with kids that I know have been ultra competitive in the schools that I've worked with. And sometimes kids take that on because they're just naturally good kids and they don't think about how awesome they are and how they can teach somebody else how to do that. But again, it's a way that it's presented. If they've already had some experience with being called out for being competitive and, we have to make it fair, we have to make it equal, that might be a little bit harder to overcome because they already know that they've kind of been, criticized for that. Or depending on the age of the child, I would also just engage the child in problem solving. What else do you think you could do? And sometimes I think that that's really a great way to have student buy-in. What else do you think you can teach somebody else to do? Or what else do you think we could do to make it fair for other kids and have the kid help come up with some solutions? Okay. All right, I think we've got all of our online comments or questions. Anything else from our live audience? Yes.
I have a 5-year-old son that sees his sister that is in middle school on her device quite a bit. It's a school device, so obviously she has to do homework, and he wants to be on a device. How do I explain to him that she's doing school and not just fun?
Yeah, that's hard, right? Because big sister's on her computer, I want to be on my computer, right? I would go back to looking at, so the question for our microphone is that the difference expectations for little kids on screen time versus older kids on screen time. And I would go back to looking at some of those expectations, right? So if you're looking at, you know what, for little kids for screen time, I love the idea of like having little tickets or something, like three 15-minute tickets or something like that, maybe 3 30-minute tickets. And when they complete their chores, or when they do their schoolwork, or when they read their books, or whatever their expectations are at home, then they earn a ticket. And then when they want to spend their ticket, they turn it into you. And then when your tickets are gone, they're done for the day. And the kid has the power and control to decide when they want to use their ticket, right? For sister, she might have bigger tickets. Now, just for fun, for the little one, you might need to make sister 3 tickets, but hers are an hour, right? So she used a ticket, that's, and then we just, because if he's looking at that as trying to be equal, how can you have the same system, but with different expectations, okay? And for little kids, certainly it's kind of gamey, right? And that's what they like. Oh, did you earn a ticket by doing your chore? And you feel that you can kind of make that connect to expectations too. Did you get your homework done? You earned a ticket. Did you make your bed, brush your teeth? You earned a ticket. And allow them to be able to use it like that. But sister has bigger tickets. I mean, maybe hers are half sheet, right? Because sister's big, she has big tickets. And, just whatever, you're talking to a 5-year-old, so you make that fit within your family, right?
Yeah.
Sister's tickets are bigger because she's a bigger kid. And he would probably be able to associate that. Bigger kids have bigger tickets, bigger time, versus, she's doing homework because she's at school. She's at home. Why is she doing schoolwork? That's too abstract for kids. Okay? All right. Give that a try, maybe. Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Thank you, Angie.
All
Very
right. You're
informative.
welcome. Remember, take it slow, one step at a time. Don't try to do everything that I said on here in one night. You'll overwhelm yourself and nothing will work, and you'll feel disappointed. And we want you to be successful and try out the tools when you feel ready. Okay? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.